Besides using what you know and your capacity to evaluate subjective phenomena such as food and the arts, you can find promising article material in things you believe. The more passionately, the better. In 1994, Quebec writer Carol Krentz got so fed up with the fact that no country would lift a finger to help Bosnia that she wrote an opinion piece and called the editor of the Montreal Gazette to warn him that it was on its way. After receiving it, the editor called her to ask for a tighter focus and then published the revised piece the day after the Sarajevo marketplace was bombed. Through the wire services, the story appeared in the Calgary Herald as well as in Montreal, prompting more than 1,000 people to write Krentz letters in response. It succeeded in moving so many people, she says, stirred up a lot of political activism, and made me feel better for having done something to coax everyone out of their stupor and pay attention. I don't want to give the impression that world events serve as the preponderant theme for opinion pieces, though, because you can equally build these pieces around everyday issues, such as colleagues at a dinner of 4 who order more drinks than everyone else and then suggest splitting the check 4 ways. Californian Marie Faust Evatt had published just 3 essays with the San Jose Mercury News when she sold a piece to Newsweek's prestigious My Turn column about adults glorifying summer vacation and implying to kids that school was best when it was finished for the year. You might not think this is an issue one could feel passionately about, but each June, virtually all my relatives, neighbors, and store clerks ask my kids if they are glad school is out for the summer, Evatt says. That year, the first time someone asked my first grader if he were looking forward to summer, I got so steamed that I sent this piece right out to Newsweek. They published it a few weeks later. Different as their topics were, both Krentz and Evatt had one factor working in their favor: timeliness. The Bosnia editorial related to events in the news, while Evatt's piece reached Newsweek just before that year's national summer vacation. If your message isn't intrinsically well-timed, you can increase its appeal for editors by using a so-called news hook or news peg, that is, tying it into something people are currently thinking and talking about. Judith Schlesinger, a clinical psychologist in Dobbs Ferry, New York, felt moved to sound off when she heard both President Clinton and the governor of Oklahoma refer to the Oklahoma City bombers as evil. Her piece used that as the lead for her reflections on what it meant that her field of psychology never used such moralistic language. Instead, whether it's Charles Manson, Jeffrey Dahmer, or Susan Smith in question, psychologists seem to examine criminals' motives so minutely that they wound up obscuring the misdeed itself. Schlesinger mentioned recent signs that psychology was beginning to narrow its gap with respect to religious perspectives, another timely element. Her editorial ran in 9 editions of the Gannett newspaper chain in Westchester and Putnam counties. To capitalize on the timeliness factor, you have several options. One is to seize the inspiration of the moment and to finish and submit your essay that very day or the next. Since newspaper editorials usually run from 600 to 800 words, that shouldn't present insuperable problems for many of you. Call your target newspaper's editorial department to find out if they prefer to receive your timely editorial by email or some other way. Another is to have much of an editorial written and to wait until current events provide a suitable hook, and then to incorporate what just occurred into your piece's lead and change other sections of it where necessary to fit. For monthly magazines that include an opinion column, keep in mind using a timely hook that readers would be encountering your piece roughly 4 months after you wrote it. Because memories of the details of transitory news events would by then already have faded, make sure any news hook concerns larger, less forgettable events, a terrorist bombing, say, rather than a politician's slip of the tongue. Although you see in Chapter 6 that I recommend on the whole sending editors query letters rather than completed articles, short editorials constitute a major exception. Send in the whole piece, ready to be slipped right in to the publication. In discussions with newspaper editors and other writers, you might hear the expression op-ed piece, short for opposite the editorial page. This term derives from a pioneering innovation of the New York Times in the early 1970s. Until then, editorials usually shared one page.